Hey kiddies, Retro Dad. It's been a while since I did just a normal video where I talk about collecting in general. As you see in my Fortress of Gaming hood, or my wall of gaming, I'm surrounded by my NES collection. And that's what we're going to talk about today, NES collecting. And especially in the box. Find out more after this. Welcome back to So Wrong's Retro Collecting. Before we get into today's topic about collecting NES games in the box, let's talk about the tier system of collectability of games anyway. And that all comes down to price, collectability, and rarity. Now, if you have an app, some of them will rank the games 1 to 12, and some websites will rank them 1 to 10. Well, I'm going to have more of a simplistic tier system. And this is from my own opinion, by the way, so it's not going to be 100% accurate according to apps. This is what I witnessed and what I've gone through as a collector. So the first tier is the very common games. These are like the 1 and 2s in those apps. Those are like Bases Loaded 1 and 2 and Super Mario Bros. Duck Hunt. They're widespread, they're everywhere. You can find them all the time in the wild. Now for you newbies, the wild means like stores or garage sales. Out there when you're exploring, looking for deals, you might find it somewhere. Those are 1 and 2s. You'll most likely find them anywhere. We started with very common, now there's common. Those are like the 3s and 4s. Those are like Contra and Super Mario Bros. 2 and Super Mario Bros. 3. But sometimes even the very common and common games like Contra can be worth $30 to $50 sometimes. Now the next tier are the uncommon games. Those are a little harder to find in the wild and even at expos, and you'll get lucky sometimes if you find them. And those games are like the 5s and 6s and 7s, the Gargoyles Quest 2 or G.I. Joe's The Real American Heroes. Those games are the ones that are a little bit trickier to find in the wild. Now after that are the rare games. Those are the 8s and 9s. Those are the Cowboy Kid, the Zombie Nation, Chippendales 2 and DuckTales 2. Those games are harder and harder to find, and usually they are very expensive. Now after that are the extremely rare games. Those are the 10s. Those are like you're lucky to find in the wild, like 1 in a million. Those are like if you won the lottery almost. And those, I will say with 2 words, stadium events. Now if you want to talk about unlicensed games, those are the Panzera games or the Nintendo porn games like Hot Slots, Bubble Bath Babes. Those are 10s. So what about games in the box? Well, I have 2 examples. I have Wizard and Warriors and Go-Go 13. Both these are recent pickups of mine the last couple of weeks. I got them for $5 each, which is a really good deal for complete games. Now, technically, I already owned these games before, but they were such a good deal I had to pick them up. It's hard to imagine, but at one time, most of us threw our NES game boxes away in the trash. We didn't look at them as collector's items or keepsakes. They were more or less garbage. No more than plastic wrapping. The strange thing, I kept the flimsy cardboard boxes for the Genesis or 32X games that I owned. Perhaps I had to do with the hard shell games that Sega usually did. They were meant to contain games. It must have given me the instinct to save the Sega Genesis boxes. Still, even a few N64 games survived the trash heap. They are little brittle boxes compared to the SNES or original Nintendo. A pox. How I wish I didn't throw away that NES box. It boils down to NES boxes are tougher to find than cards. The tier system we spoke about earlier also works with boxes too. On average, the rarity of the game usually reflects the box rarity as well. This isn't always true. Some games like Arkanoid might be an uncommon game, ranked around 4 or 5 on the rarity scale. Its box is rare, ranked around 8 on the scale. I haven't seen one in the box since 2010. Scoon, not Spoon! It's called Scoon, is another uncommon game ranked around 5 or 6 on the rarity scale. I would argue the game is actually much rarer than that. The same cannot be said about its box. Scoon's box is rare, almost extremely rare, ranked at a 9. If you are considering collecting the NES, and this is for you new collectors out there, There are several different types of original Nintendo games. There are licensed games. All of these games were given Nintendo seal of approval, the okay from Nintendo. For North America, around 676 total were released between 1985 and 1994. This is the set I am currently collecting for. Opposite to licensed were the ones not given the okay by Nintendo. Unlicensed games come in all sorts of colors and sometimes shapes: gold, blue, and typically black. Tengen is the most recognizable and the most common. Then there are hacks, homebrews, and new games being released. I don't consider these. In fact, I don't own any of these. There are a few I'm interested in, but not many. I usually avoid these. If you are an NES collector or considering being one, understand the time-old tradition of supply and demand. The NES still has a huge, thriving collection market. There is a lot of demand, but less supply. That means prices are not what they should be or what they were even 3 years ago. This is not a cheap hobby anymore. You can still get around 100 licensed games for under $5, leaving about 576 games that have a dollar amount ranging from $10 to $10,000. Now, if you're going out there and think about collecting NES, one thing I recommend, always do your research and look at the prices. Because a game like, let's look at Godzilla 2, which is a rare game, if not lower uncommon. I almost say it's a rare game. I don't see it very often. Getting it in the box is even harder. Getting it in the box, you're going to add a lot more money. You can find some boxes just on their own for $5 to $20, and some boxes are worth much more than that. Now, one thing you can consider if you're going out there and collecting NES games or getting games in the box, sometimes you can get the boxes on their own. I have several games with the manuals. Like Bubble Bobble 2, for example, I have the cart and I have the manual. I'm only a third away from a complete game. Another example is Ninja Gaiden 3. I have the cart and I have the manual. I'm 1/3 away from a complete game, and that is an uncommon game. And so you can get the boxes, but sometimes you might be paying a pretty penny for boxes as well. There are different subgenres of collecting NES games in the box. First, there are the black box games. These were actually the original games that were released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in the 1980s. These have one thing in common. Can you guess? That's right, they came in black boxes. Examples are Pinball, 10-Yard Fight, Donkey Kong, Gyromite, one of the few games you can use your robotic operating buddy with, and Pro Wrestling. There are about 30 in total, although you could argue there is 31 with Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. It says Sports Series on it, and it's in a black box. I'm just saying. The second subgenre, licensed games in the box. Sought-after ones include the Mega Man series, Castlevania series, and the Mario series. There are also variants and covers in some games like Gunsmoke or Untouchables. These typically cost more since there isn't that many compared to the more common variant. The third are unlicensed games like Venice Beach. Ooh, it's a woman in a bikini. Nintendo doesn't approve if there's too much skin. You might find that getting some of these unlicensed games in the box or complete in the box is harder to find than the licensed counterparts. The Classic series is another subgenre. These are the re-release games with NES, games like Metroid, Punch-Out with Mr. Dream, and Legend of Zelda and Adventures of Link, all were released under the Classic series titling. Hacks and newer released NES games in the box are also a subgenre of collecting. Plus, there's a sealed collecting market out there, but that's another topic. I consider NES boxes art and part of video game history. That's why I enjoy getting games in the box. I originally only got a few boxes to remember what it was like to see them in the stores in the 80s and 90s. Now I have over 100 games either complete in the box or just in the box. Even if you believe a game is bad, the box artwork can be a complete reversal of the game itself. The artwork can be aesthetically pleasing to the eyes and even to the soul. Take Who Framed Roger Rabbit for example. Gamers have ripped this game apart over the years, but the box looks great. It reminds you of the movie, which is supposed to. Oh, Jessica Rabbit. Don't tell me you were just drawn that way. Another great thing about getting games in the box, it acts as an extra layer of protection for the card itself. If you start getting games in the box, do yourself a favor. Get a plastic shell for the box. It protects the box from elemental damage and it will last much longer. As a bonus, it gives an extra layer of protection for your cart. The biggest concern these days with collecting, besides the obvious of cost and supply, is the fakery among the hobby. Reproductions are rapid, and for some people they can get fooled thinking they're buying an authentic cart but find out it's a reproduction instead. Little Samson is one of the most expensive games for the NES library. Buyers don't want to waste $500 or more on a fake game. They want the real deal. Besides, you can knowingly get a reproduction for under $25. Some people collect reproductions, and that is fine, especially if the buyer knows what they are getting and it states reproduction on the cover. It can be less expensive than getting an authentic card. Boxes too can be counterfeit, so buyers beware. Always demand to see the board of a rare and expensive game to verify its authenticity. Open it up, look at the chip, make sure it's the right one by looking maybe at one online. Do yourself a favor, check. You have to ask yourself, are you getting a complete in the box game or just in the box because you want to collect or to play? If it's just to play, I recommend getting a game loose. It typically saves you a lot of money. Even collecting loose saves you money. So you gotta ask yourself, is it worth getting it loose or in the box? Because sometimes the loose game can be worth a lot of money on its own, but the box is a whole other dollar amount. And that's what you gotta ask yourself, is it worth getting that game in the box? Because sometimes you spend double, if not triple, to get it complete in the box. And that's something to consider when you go out there NES collecting. So I hope you learned a little bit today, enjoyed the episode, and thank you for watching, and have fun, go game, see you later. Now put these back. I love Mighty Final Fight, by the way.